So one of the big challenges when you're a quickly growing company is where do you get enough money to continue to grow? You can't always just get it from banks because you might not have enough collateral, you might not be able to afford the debt service, and so you need to bring on money from investors potentially. Generally, if you're bringing on money from investors, they're going to need to see that you're selling the company in 3 to 5 years. That's how they get their money back out in a kind of private offering. And that poses big challenges, really big challenges, for place-based companies and mission-based companies. You know what happens when the mic what happens when a place-based company gets bought? It moves, right? The jobs go with it. When a mission-based company gets bought, the mission goes out the window. Immediately, usually. Or it's kept, but it's just kind of a joke. It's not really alive anymore the way the founders and originators of that company did. And we know the story really well in Vermont. Have you heard of a little ice cream company called Ben & Jerry's? Started in a garage in Vermont. Sold for $385 million to Unilever. Ben Cohen thought he could stay within the company and work within Unilever and keep that mission alive and going. And he worked and worked and worked, and he couldn't. So it's really important how you take on money as a quickly growing company to make sure that you don't set yourself on this inevitable path to sell. So I've got a few examples. One is our company, High Mowing Seeds. Didn't even tell you that I have a seed company, I don't think. That's my job, is running a organic mail order seed company. I started it when I was 19 for a hobby. Had it for about 5 years as a hobby till 2000 or so. Grew really quickly from 2000 until now. We've got about 35 employees. And we were at this gangly teenager stage a few years ago where we needed more money to be able to help grow the company. We'd had offers of people to buy the company, including from some very scary big companies. And I didn't entertain any of them, don't worry. But I couldn't afford to pay more money back to the bank. In the dot-com era in California in the 90s, the entrepreneurs would brag about their burn rate. How much cash are you burning through a month? 10 million? I'm doing 20 million a month. Right? So when you are growing really quickly, you are burning through money really fast. And through that gangly teenager stage, we needed to invest in a bigger building than we needed at that time, a better computer system than we really needed, and we needed to pay people more than we could afford so that they would be the best people we could find and that they would help us through this stage. And so we created this convertible debt offering. And for those of you particularly interested in the financial side of things, we can get into more of that later. But how it works is very simple, and I don't know all the rules and how you all do things up here. So some of these may or may not work with your various laws. But this convertible debt offering works like this. People invest in the seed company. They get 6% return on that, but it doesn't actually get paid out to them. It accumulates for 5 years. At 5 years, they get a balloon check for all of the accumulated interest. So let's say you did 50 grand. 6% on 50 grand for 5 years, where it's accruing there, would be about $16,000, $17,000. So you get a check for that, and then it would be your option as the investor of what to do with your principal, with your $50,000. Do you want to convert it into shares in the company, or do you want us to pay it back to you slowly over 5 years, but at that point kind of regular principal and interest payments still at 6%? It's very simple, but what it does is it allows investors a chance to put their money in and get their money back out without us having to sell the company. There's a way they can get their money back out. And I had this, plus it also gives them 6%, which as a known company, meaning that we've been in business for 10 years already, people weren't worried about us going belly up. And so when you're investing in a startup or generally in a venture capital model, you don't know if you're going to make a penny. You might lose everything. Hopefully your company will take off and you'll make lots and lots and lots of money. But in many cases, you're taking a lot of risk. So we made it not as risky by saying, okay, 6% no matter what. And so I wouldn't say that it was easy, but we found a lot of really excited people in the community that had been watching us grow and excited about all of this. And they said, heck, 6% for 10 years, like a kind of a loan, like a CD for 10 years at 6%? That seems great, we'll do that. And so this was a creative model that there are a number of other businesses working on right now. Because for me, it's free money for 5 years. Remember, I didn't have to pay anything until those balloon interest payments at 5 years? That's great, because I need it. I need to get through this gangly teenager stage. So that was 3 years ago. We're through it now. So it works. Everybody's happy, they're excited, things are going smoothly, and it really, I know very directly what it feels like to have appropriate investment that doesn't force me to grow too quickly, be unsustainable, or risk having to sell the company. And I would not have been able to do it otherwise. So we grew from $500,000 to $2 million in sales in the last 3 years because of that wonderful infusion that helped us continue to respond well to this market that was really demanding what we had and what we were offering. The other example I'll give you on the financial side is Claire's Restaurant. Hardwick didn't have a restaurant downtown. And it's a really important place for a town, for a small community. They talk about it as the third space. Not home, not work, but a third space where people can come together. And you know, in a really small town, you see everybody you know at the diner or the restaurant or the bar or whatever it is. There are those community gathering spots, and they're really critical, and a lot gets built and happens there. But restaurants are really hard to get started. It takes a lot of money, they're really risky. Most of them go out of business. And in a small rural community, we've had restaurants just flipping and flipping and flipping. And maybe you guys have seen this too. But somebody out, works hard, gets a restaurant going, 6 months later, they're out. A year later, they're out. So what this group of people did is they said, we're going to start 2 companies. One is called the Hardwick Restaurant Group. That company is going to raise money from local investors at like 3% return. And they raised $300,000. And they found the space for the restaurant on Main Street. They renovated it. It's a rented space. And they paid the lease on this space for 12 years. They got a screaming deal, don't you imagine, right? One big check for 12 years. If I owned that place, I would give them a great deal on rent. So they got a really nice deal. They got the kitchen all set up, the equipment, everything in there. $300,000. Then this group of people started a second company called Claire's Restaurant. Claire's raised $75,000 in $1,000 gift certificates that people eat their way through over 4 years. And they had a meeting just like this, where they gathered a bunch of people together and said, we want to start a restaurant, we want to present to you our ideas. And they said, we need 75 people to put up $1,000. And if we don't make this fly, we'll give it all back to you. We won't spend it until we've raised enough. We'll give it back to you. But if it works, you will have had a huge hand in making this community restaurant happen. It's kind of like a CSA, isn't it? CSR. CSA is Community Supported Agriculture, for some of you who probably know or don't know that. And so they did it. Claire's opened a year and a half ago, and it was an amazing thing. And they have been spending about 80% of their food dollars within 10 miles. So that means that pretty much everything, remember the size of this community? We're talking about a few thousand people, right? So this means everybody knows each other. It's not a very transient community. There's not a lot of people moving in from outside. These are the folks that have been there for a while, and their kids and their kids' kids.